Welcome back, everybody. Episode 54 of Kane's Local. We're going to dive in this week with USA Canada epic game, Kane's players at Four Nations, and clinching scenarios for Monday. All that and much more coming up next. All right, guys. So let's dive into it. Oh my God! What a 9 seconds to launch a hockey game. Um, USA Canada. You know, it was a bloodbath. I mean, it was as expected. I didn't expect it to be that big a deal, but oh my goodness, what a start to what was an epic game. Quite honestly, you can't say it any other way.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up a clip here, and this is the best way to describe it. It's from, and Dad, you'll kind of get a kick out of this. It's from the Arc of Racing series. They had a race yesterday at Daytona, and a gentleman from YouTube named Cletus McFarland took part in this race. And his post-game interview is the best way to
It
describe
was.
this game. And I'm just gonna play it through the mic here, and hopefully it picks it up nicely. Hold on, there's a Chili's ad. No free ads here, so I gotta make sure I'm skipping this here.
As a whole. Well, it's the best day of my life. Strip around Daytona like a bald eagle. It's flat, you know, avoided a wreck, which was awesome. I thought I was the best driver to ever exist in that moment. And it's probably because my sleeves were cut off that I was able to pull up that maneuver coming down pit road. Then someone slammed into my rear left corner, spun me out, lived through it, got some fresh tires, went back out there. I'm hot dogging in 1 and 2, and the car lost it in front of me. I saw it, didn't have enough brakes to get slowed down before it, and tried to go around it, misread it, zigged instead of zagged when I should have zagged, and I zigged, and won the front end right off my hot rod.
I hate that for you. Before we came
Like,
Man. Yeah.
to have two absolute national treasure clips.
That's
The
crazy.
first 9 seconds
Yeah.
of that US Canada game, that's the best way. They came flying out like damn bald eagles. Free Bird was living high last night.
Oh yeah, no, it was crazy. And what's really interesting is John Cooper said it best. He said it was just absolutely mayhem. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
but it set the tone for the game.
Yeah.
And I think both teams. I'll give it to both teams. So
Yeah. I mean, you look at all 3 fights, very even tilts, and both teams stepped up, and oh my goodness, what a show. I mean, bravo. I mean, I'm gonna quote Ryan Whitney one more time. He tweeted best, yes, last night, the best tweet I seen. He said, "I'm really missing the All-Star game right about now." Because what a difference.
Yeah.
What a difference.
No, this is,
It-
I mean, it's huge. Like it's just so much more enjoyable to watch. I mean, the build up and just, I mean, everything about it. The fact that it was in Canada and now that we'll probably get to see that, I'm assuming we'll see that rematch again on Thursday in Boston, but who
Hey,
knows? I mean, it
I don't
it
know.
could,
Those
anything
pesky
could happen.
Finns, man.
I know. If the Finns win, they're in too, I believe, because
Yep.
Yeah,
I
they
don't
are.
believe the Swedes are going to beat the U.S. So
well, the Swedes can't get in.
Yeah, they can.
they can if they beat the
Well,
U.S.
I know, but they also lose a tiebreak to
That's
both
true.
Canada.
They lose the
and
tiebreak to
Finland.
both
Yes,
So they
but
Canada
can't
and
get
Finland.
if they win in it, no, hold on, because they all have 2 points. If they
Oh, if
win
they
in
win in
regulation
regulation.
and the other game goes to OT, Sweden's
That's
in.
right. I forgot
Oh,
about
there
that.
you go.
Yep.
Okay, didn't
So
didn't put that one
Monday's
together.
wide open. We'll talk about that later.
Oh,
Okay,
interesting.
okay.
I didn't even
We'll
realize
tease that later.
But yeah, no, the U.S. Canada game was so good. I mean, it was probably the best game that I've seen. I don't even know, like, and I mean, I don't even think a game in the playoffs got me that excited. Like even Game 7 Cup final, like I was obviously like into it, but this was different. You know, this is, I don't know.
This
It's
is
different, but
the last game was over a decade ago, where I can remember it like almost the entire game through and through, like game finished to end. And it's the 2010 finals at the Olympics, the golden goal. Canada gets the better end of that exchange in overtime. That's the last time where I'm sitting there and I'm like, not even just between these two teams, just a game was that intense, that on edge. And U.S. comes out on the better side of this one. But I'll tell you what, the Kachuk brothers, I'd if I need one of them. These guys I love the fact that they're U.S. citizens. It makes me so happy because if they were on another team, I would hate it. I hate it when we play against any one of them. I hate the fact that they're on other teams. If they were on my team every game, every year, it'd be the most exciting thing in the freaking world. Brady Kachuk is a dog. I unfortunately think Matthew Kachuk got injured in last night's game because he didn't play half of the game. But I mean, talk about just dogs on a bone. Those two guys are crazy. Granted, they didn't get the offensive chances that they had in the Finland game, but that was also because I think they just played a different style that game.
Yeah, I know. I think, it's pretty obvious that they bring that physical, that aggressive, that they make everybody else around them more of a junkyard dog than they already were. I mean, even Slavin. I mean, you look at plays during the game, he actually got into it with Crosby. I was like, "What the hell's going on here?" I said, "You've never seen that out of Jacob Slavin." And I think it was really evident that Canada, they came to play, US came to play. I tell you what, the US defensive core was absolutely lights out.
Yep.
I mean, if anybody questions how good Jacob Slavin is, watch that game. A best on best.
I've seen
best
all
on
over.
best.
I have so many. I'm bookmarking them. Everybody all over social media is like, he is. I've never seen a defensive performance like that. They were in awe. They're like, I don't watch Carolina games enough to know that he's him. He is unbelievable. Now, I do have to pull the stat from last night. So the Slavin and Faber pairing. Now, let's not point out the fact Brock Faber is an unbelievable defenseman in his own right. He's only 22 years old. The ceiling is very high for him. Like, unbelievable player. And this is just hats off to him as well, too. They were on the ice for every American goal. They were not on the ice for the Canadian goal. Brock Faber had 24 minutes and 55 seconds. Jacob Slavin played 25 minutes and 36 seconds. A majority of their time coming up against Canada's top two lines. The second pairing had 19 minutes. So these guys outplayed basically everybody by 6 minutes. And they were ranked number 1 and number 2 according to Corsi scores, respectively. Slavin number 1 and Faber number 2. The best shutdown pair we've seen in decades. Outside of, again, the last time I can think of it, the 2014 maybe with Shea and Duncan Keith. That pairing was lights out in that whole tournament. But the other thing I want to point out, we are the first team to beat Canada in the past. Their top team in the past 25. They were 25-0 or something like that going into this game.
It was Crosby. Crosby hadn't lost a game in 26 games in World Cup play.
Yeah,
or international play or whatever the hell you want to call it. But yeah, no, it's wild. Slavin was absolutely lights out. And the thing I love about it is that, look, Rod, if you're listening, this is where a Morrow can slot right in with Jacob Slavin. He can take a kid over the top. That's why they moved Slavin to Faber, because Faber was nervous. Jacob Slavin makes everybody better, and it's proof positive by I mean, good hats off to, I don't know who's running the D on Team USA, but hats off to him. I think it's John Hines.
it is.
It is
Yes,
John
yes,
Hines.
yes.
Hats off to him, because he made that move right away, because he saw Slavin and Fox was not working. And how Fox is a Norris Trophy
that's a whole different
candidate.
Yeah,
That's a whole different story. But anyways, Jacob Slavin lights out last night with Brock Faber.
I mean,
that pairing was awesome.
like if that would have been a 1-0 game, Slavin would have won MVP.
He should have.
The only reason he
think he
didn't was
should've.
because Gensel had 2 goals. That's the only reason he didn't.
And that's what sucks about it. That's
I
what
know.
I hate about that. It's who scored the flipping goals.
I
It's
know.
like, that's so
I
stupid.
mean, Slavin was the best player on the ice, and it wasn't close. Like, he was by far the best player on the ice. I mean, the broadcast couldn't stop talking about him. They were referencing Trip Tracy on a national broadcast, talking about how if they had an award for the best defensive defenseman, he would win it every year. And you know why? Because his hand-eye is next. I've never seen hand-eye coordination like he has.
Last guy I've
Forward
seen it is Nick
defenseman.
Lidström.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
pretty high
probably
praise there.
That's probably the last guy that I've seen that's been able to do it, at this level. But I think even Lidström would struggle at this point. Like, obviously his age is one thing, but like you put Lidström in now. I don't think Lidström was as fast as Slavin is, and I also don't think he would be able. That's basically the point. Is he's not as fast, so he wouldn't be able to keep up with the speed of play. Like, I don't know if
Yeah,
he'd
but
be able to
that's
keep
always
up with
hard to
McDavid and McKinnon. I know it's hard to judge
it's hard to
because
judge
everybody.
because it's like with this argument, Wayne Gretzky wouldn't have as many points if he played in today's NHL. Of course, yeah, he
For
grew up
sure
in
he
a
would
completely
not,
different way. But if Connor McDavid grew up the way Wayne Gretzky did, maybe Connor McDavid doesn't become the player that he is. It's just
Yeah.
it's so hard to say that. But like Nick Lidström for his time, I mean, he didn't win his first Norris until he was 31 years old, and then he won it was like 7 out of the next 8 or something like that. Like he went on a bananas tour in the second half of his career. But I mean, just talking about like he doesn't allow the puck to get into the zone. His like he knocks everything down. He bats everything away. He is so poised. Cam, I'm going to use a little bit of a soccer reference, and I think it's probably, I don't know, Dad, if you'll know this one, but he reminds me a lot of like a Sergio Busquets, where he's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's so poised with the puck. He makes the right decision 99.9% of the time. He's not going to rush anything. If he doesn't have an option, he's willing to just flip the puck to the other zone.
Out
He just
into the
flips
neutral
it.
zone.
But the fact, there was a play last night. He had 2 guys converging on him. He turns around and still has the wherewithal to know that their sticks are coming. So he pulls it back into himself and then flips it out. And I'm like, that little play is so unbelievably hard to do when you have Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid busting down your throat. And that sounded weird, but you but yeah, but you got those 2 guys.
We know what you meant.
Yeah,
We
those
know
2
what
guys
you meant.
flying at you. I'm turning that puck over 10 times out of 10. There's not a scenario where I'm making that play. And I know I'm not a defenseman. Cam, there's not a scenario you're making that play. There's not a scenario that Adam Fox is making that play 10 times out of 10. Like, there is very few guys in the world that can make that play. Unfortunately for Canada, I think one of those guys was out last night. I do think Cale Makar does make that a little bit of a different game just because of how dynamic he is defensively. But I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know if it changes the scoreline. I think it might
the
just
outcome.
Exactly. Connor Hellebuyck too. I think he deserves a lot of praise as well too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of chances. I felt like Canada had better grade A chances, but US capitalized on theirs. When the US had a chance, they scored on it, and that goes back to what we said at the beginning of this tournament. It's going to come down to goaltending. Connor Hellebuyck's one of the best in the world, and no bad ill will to Jordan Bennington, but those are 2 savable shots. Very savable shots that go in on him. And it's like, okay, that's the difference in the game. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I think the other thing too that really stood out to me, and I'm going to stick on the U.S. defenses, is they made McKinnon, they made Crosby, they made McDavid look normal last night.
Well, that's
and
Jacob Slavin.
They were unnoticeable. And I think, but one of the key plays for the game, and I'll give a little props to a Bruin, is Charlie McAvoy's hit on Connor McDavid. That was ridiculous.
I thought McAvoy played really well.
Yeah, McAvoy.
I thought he did too.
I thought that was probably his best defensive game I've seen him play in forever. I don't think I've ever seen him play a D game like that.
No, he's a good 2-way defenseman. He's not like he reminds me a lot of a Drew Doughty, where he does wander from time to time in his own zone, but he does play rather good defensively for the Bruins most of the time.
Yeah, he was like the third Kachuk brother last night, because he was just absolutely physical. That's his game, and that's where he's so good.
Yep.
And I think a few props to him. I think everybody else was good. They were good when they needed to be good.
I have one other guy, and this is something that I didn't know going into this game, and I don't watch a lot of Toronto Maple Leafs hockey. So Austin Matthews' 200-foot game is something I understand now why he was up for the Selke last year. Like, I don't watch enough when I saw him up for the Selke, I was like, that's a bit of an oddball one. I don't watch enough to really give a big judgment on it, but I thought it was more of he's Toronto. They couldn't get him in for the goals. They couldn't get him in for something else. So they kind of dished him into this award just to give him the hype and praise. No, he's earned every right of that. His 200-foot game is exceptional.
Yeah, he made a couple of back checks last night. I'm like, okay.
Between that and the Finland game, game, he was all over the ice as well too.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I'll give him hats off for that, because I did not know that aspect. He reminds me more of Aho now than he did before. He just has a way better shot and goal scoring touch as well too to his game.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's a perfect segue there, Kyle. Let's talk a little bit about the Canes players, how they're doing it at this tournament so far. I mean, I've watched every game. I watched most of yesterday's Finland-Sweden game, but for the most part, what are the initial takeaways from Rantanen, Aho, and Jarvis? I thought Jarvis had a good game against Finland. Was a little bit unnoticed, not as noticeable
He
last
only
night, but
played
for
like
obvious
8
reasons.
minutes. That's
Yeah,
like
so
I know.
it's hard to notice somebody when they're not on the ice
yeah,
that often. So,
yeah, so how about the rest of the crew?
Cam, I'll let you go first on this.
I mean, I think obviously Rantanen should have had 2 points yesterday. They took one away. I guess it went off Barkov's stick. I don't really know. I never really saw a good replay of it, but he should have had 2 points yesterday. He did get a goal. Goal was honestly, it was kind of similar to the Chicago goal. Where it was kind of just a
Yeah.
floater and it just kind of went into the net. So, but again, it's all about just, put points on the board, get some confidence up. I think that that's going to pay dividends going in because, Finland looks at this game and then they look at the game that they have on Monday against Canada and they're like, oh, so if we just play like we normally play, which is heavy, physical,
Yep.
on the puck, dump and chase, we can probably beat this team. We got a good chance to beat this team. Do I think they beat them? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that they can't give them a run. I definitely think it's going to be a lot closer than the U.S.-Finland game for sure. So I thought Randon played well. I think Aho played well also, once he started to elevate his physical side of the game, especially in the Sweden game. I think Jarvis has played well. Again, like you said, he didn't have many minutes last night, so it's kind of hard to judge. But again, that's a John Cooper decision. That's not it's not a fault of Jarvis by any means. So, and then I think Slavin's been the best player in this tournament. So I don't really have anything else to say on those guys. But yeah, no, those are kind of the my rundown, at least of what I've seen so far.
Yeah, so Jarvis played 11 minutes and 7 seconds last night. Marchand only played 8 minutes. That's craziness. The Jarvis, I think, was Canada's most outside of the guys. Yeah, you have Connor McDavid. Yes, you have Nathan McKinnon. Yes, you have.
Well, they
Sidney
moved him on the
Crosby.
second power play unit too. Sorry,
Yeah.
just throwing that in there.
When you have those top guys, they're always going to play exceptional in big moments. Those guys just always do. And I think that their U.S. did a really good job of stopping them from being exceptional last night. But I thought in the first game, outside of the big boys, as you would call them, I thought Jarvis was their best player overall. And I know I'm unbelievably biased in this regard, so don't take it with a grain of salt. But like, just, I mean, on the Marchand goal, he creates that. He created a lot, I felt like, in that first game. When Canada really wasn't going towards the second half of that game, I thought he was that guy that brought a lot of energy. I thought him and Sorelli did a really good job. At that point also was another guy that brought a lot of energy for them. But Jarvis, I don't think is getting... This is exactly what Seth Jarvis kind of needs / what Canada wants from Jarvis as well, too. They don't need him playing 40 or 25 minutes a night. They don't need him playing 22. They need him learning. He's young. He's going to be the future of Canada. He's going to play maybe alongside a McDavid in a future tournament. Probably not maybe to that level, but maybe on the second line. But they need him to get accustomed to, oh, this is how Canada does it. This is how we operate. This is how we do our systems, from a learning curve. So this is what Jarvis needs and what Canada wants out of Jarvis. So I'm not putting any kind of blame or not blame. I shouldn't even say blame, but like, I'm not putting any stock really into his tournament because they're just more focused on the future with him. Aho, I think, has been Finland's best player in both games. At least the most noticeable. Doesn't have any shots, I think, in the whole tournament, but he set line up for a couple. In the other game, he had an assist on Rantanen's goal against Sweden. I think he's looked good. Rantanen has been okay. I think he's looked okay. Finland, it was just kind of tough because I didn't get to watch the whole game against Sweden yesterday. So
okay.
Yes.
I was because that's why I was like, Rantanen had his fingerprints all over that game yesterday.
Okay, so
Rantanen was
I was going to say
was
the
way better
highlights,
than Aho yesterday.
Okay, so
and it wasn't close.
then my apologies there. But from that first game, I felt like Rantanen still was struggling with the puck a little bit, where I felt like Aho definitely had some more chance set up. But yeah, unfortunately didn't. I got to watch the first period of the Finland-Sweden game, which was kind of just a stalemate, in my opinion, that whole first period. So I didn't get to watch the second and the third, which I feel like a lot of the action happened there. So I can kind of delegate that over to you guys. But I'm just happy Rantanen scored. I hope he keeps scoring. I hope he keeps playing well. Cam, I couldn't agree with you more. I think Jacob Slavin's been the best player of the tournament so far. Just
Yeah.
hands down. I mean, the first game he didn't have to do much, but from his performance last night, he should have been MVP last night. It should have like there's if and I'm gonna kind of wrap it up with this point. Finland's issue is they're not going to be able to shut down those top guys. And so that's what's like they just don't have the defensive core that USA
Right.
has, and they don't have a Jacob Slavin. Maybe Miro Heiskanen is about the closest thing that they have to him, and he's sitting on the sideline. Yanni Hakanpää is another good defenseman, but he's on the sideline. Like they just don't have the depth defensively to deal with Connor McDavid and Nathan McKinnon. And those guys are going to play 25 minutes in that game because they're going to want to have retribution against the U.S. Like they're going to try in their hand to get retribution against the U.S. and they're going to do everything that they can to win. Now, do I think Finland has a shot? 100%, but it's not going to be a close game. Finland's going to maybe get some offensive chances with that Aho or with the Aho line and with the Barkov line. But outside of that, it's going to be, I would not be surprised if the shots are like 55 to 13, 14. Like Finland's going to have to win this game 2-1.
Yeah, they're gonna have to shut it down as best they can. I mean, they did a good job against the U.S. for the first 2 periods, and then
They ran out of gas.
They ran out of gas. So I think they're defensive. They're a good 2-period defensive team, and then after that, they're just if you can sustain the storm, the Finland storm, then you'll be fine into the third. So I do think Canada's going to win that game, but I do agree with you, Cam. I didn't see all of the Finland game, but what I did see of it. I liked Rantanen's game. He was actually engaged. He looked like he was having fun and playing. And a couple of that one spin move where he comes in the zone and spins off the puck and makes a play. And I think did they score on that
They
play or
did.
not?
That was he was really like he made that play happen. He should have gotten an assist. He didn't get a point.
He was like this. If they gave out 3 assists,
Yeah,
he would have gotten the third.
Yeah.
But he made the play.
He made the whole thing happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, good on him. I think it's going to be helpful for us coming back into the startup of our season, having him playing like that. And what was nice about, again, he wasn't playing against the U.S. defensive core, which anybody in this tournament will tell you is the best.
There's not an NHL defensive core like the U.S. defensive core.
No. So to do that against the U.S. defensive core is tough anyways. But he elevated his game yesterday. I thought they looked good. Both players. Aho always looks good. I mean,
not always, but yes.
Yeah, but I mean, but he's never really a train wreck. I guess let me put it that way.
Yeah, generally.
He's never
always
horrible, but
there
are
a
games where he's not himself.
He's not himself. No, I get it. But they're few and far between. That's kind of like Jacob Slavin. He's like the Jacob Slavin up front. He doesn't have a bad game, but when he does, it's noticeable. But they don't have him very often.
Yeah.
So, but I do like everybody's game so far. I think Jarvy's been impactful. He's been noticeable. He's made plays where they're noticeable, and takes hits to make plays, and those little things that people don't look at. They just look at the score sheet. I have a lot of people that talk to me about games, and we got blown out, but really did we in certain games for the Hurricane? Not really for this tournament, but really did we? We didn't really get blown out. We got outscored. We actually were the better team, but we got outscored. So those games are going to happen. But I like I said, I like the way everybody's been playing so far, and I really look forward to everybody coming out of the Four Nations and back into our squad and getting rolling again, because I think we're gonna start clipping off here at a good clip. And I think especially Rantanen, I think he's starting to get a little bit of confidence by the way he finished the game yesterday. I think was a key. So we'll see how he does against Canada. That's going to be a big tell. So
Canada that should have, I think, a Cale Makar back as well too. But
they should.
That's a great segue into our next topic, which would be
the clinching scenario.
Yes, there we go. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, so it looks like, I got one wrong. So thanks, Kyle, for correcting me on air. That's no problem. I have no problem with you correcting me on air. So, but yeah, it looks like, obviously US is in, Canada with a regulation win gets in, Finland with a regulation win gets in. And I guess Sweden has to have a few things happen for them to get in. First and foremost, they got to beat the US, which likely will be, without Matthew Kachuk.
They have to do it in regulation.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
for
it goes
sure.
to overtime, they're automatically out.
They're automatically out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the long and short of it, those are the scenarios. So how do these matchups work for you guys? Looking at, I think we've already talked a little bit Canada Finland. How about this Sweden US game? What is there a chance or an opportunity that Sweden wins this game in regulation?
They have a good hockey club. There's a chance that they can win in regulation. If US decides that was their best game and that's the one they're laying their hat on, then yes, they can win. Do I think that's the case? No. I think that there was a very strong message in that locker room pre and post game of there was a lot of guys that were kind of bullshit about the booing during the anthem, which I could understand why they would be. And I don't think that this is the end of the story. Do I think that the fights were a direct result of that? No, because it sounds like there was a group chat earlier in the day that there were some guys that wanted to set a tone early in the game, and this was before anything had happened. But I just think that that's just adding fuel to the fire, and I think that US wants to make a statement in this tournament. I fully suspect they're going to come out with a statement kind of play. And if Matthew Tkachuk is out, one thing I kind of want to bring up is we can pull a guy from their vacation. Who would be your player that you would pull?
Well, we have a reserve guy.
We got Kreider,
but you
So
still
Kreider
can,
would go.
yes, you
But we
still
wouldn't
can
pull the reserve guy unless somebody else gets hurt or injured.
yeah, because that's what they had to do last night.
That's what they did with Harley. They didn't pull Harley till they even realized that Makar was sick. That's the only reason they pulled Harley.
They were already pulling Harley because
They weren't.
Well, they had to because they need to have one reserve guy because Theodore's out for the tournament.
That's what I'm trying to say is they don't have to. The only reason they pulled Harley was because Makar was questionable. So the NHL granted basically a adjustment to the rules saying, okay, well, so you're not playing with 5 defensemen. Okay, we'll pull that. But, again, if Tkachuk's hurt, they're not pulling anybody else up. But if they were to pull somebody up, like if somebody else was to get hurt, I honestly have no idea who they would pull. I don't know, because they have to replace, they don't have to bring the best guy. They have to bring the guy that's going to replace Tkachuk or Kreider, like the big body, the physical. They have to try and bring somebody like that in there. So I'm not really sure who they bring in. Honestly, I honestly don't really know.
I agree with you that they should replace with a equal, but there's not very many equal to Matthew Tkachuk, so it's hard to replace that person.
Well, just the physical side. I mean, the skill side you can't. I guess just a heavy body that's going to be able to play on the wing.
Yeah, I mean, there's some names. I mean, Cole Caulfield is one. He's not a big physical guy, but he's a goal scorer that did not make this team. I'm trying to think of other guys that could get.
You bring Tage Thompson, maybe.
Tage Thompson.
I was going to say, I was going to say, is he a U.S. kid? I think he is.
He is. Yeah. The only problem is the only gripe I do have with Tage's game for being as big as he is not very physical.
No, not really.
Yeah.
He's not a physical player for being as big as he is.
I think he got hurt too. He got a concussion before. So he might still be in concussion protocol.
Yeah,
actually.
He got that swift elbow. I forget by who.
I know. Yeah, that was like 2 weeks ago. So, but
bring up a guy like Roslovic. You got Roslovic. I think he's from Ohio. And who else
Columbus,
is? Who else
I think.
Isn't Eric Robinson from? We're gonna tout on the Canes here.
Yeah, no,
I think
don't
Robinson's a U.S.
Like
kid
I don't
too.
know. I don't know the U.S. depth honestly.
I'm not gonna
I know
lie.
they're deep.
I think there's better options than.
I think so too.
Guys.
There's probably.
Hey, look, I'm doing a little home cooking here.
I hear you.
I'm trying to tout the brand.
I hear you. Another name too is somebody like a Mason McTavish as well out of Anaheim. He's one of those two-way grittier players. He's not quite as offensively gifted as Tkachuk, but he's also kind of a similar style player to him. Could be an option.
Yeah. How about I forgot about this guy. How about let's bring up Jackson Blake? How about that?
Oh my Lord!
There you
go. on another,
Charlie Coyle.
Yeah, on another serious note too.
Charlie Coyle. There you go. I thought about him.
What about Robinson out of Dallas?
Could do that.
Oh, Jason Robertson.
Jason Robertson. Yeah, out of Dallas. Yeah. He's not at the tournament either. He's another bigger body.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about Charlie Coyle though, Cam. That'd be a.
I mean, that would be you think of like a guy that's just gonna,
play
bring the
heavy
heaviness.
Yeah.
Because that's honestly, I think that's the way that the U.S. and they've realized that too. Is like, hey, we got talent, but we need to play heavy. We have to play physical because Canada, Finland, Sweden, they're not going to be able to handle it, and that's shown. Obviously, they can't handle it. So, that's I think you stick with that. You don't. I think bringing in a guy that's going to, bring down the level of physicality is probably not. I hope that's not what they think of if they were to need to do that. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they do actually bring up anybody. Hopefully they don't, because that would mean somebody else is injured. So
Yeah.
hopefully, I'm assuming Kachuk will probably sit out Monday's game and he'll probably play for the final. That's what I'm
so
assuming
true,
will
yeah,
happen.
but that's fair.
So, because
Yeah.
even Brady was saying in the post game, he's like, he'll be all right. Like he wasn't, he was sitting on the bench, which means it wasn't bad enough for him to go to the locker room to
Yeah.
So hopefully
Yeah.
it's
As long as
just
it's
a little
something
banged
that
up,
doesn't,
yeah.
he can't hurt any worse, to quote Herb Brooks saying. Can he hurt it any worse?
Yeah.
And then if he can, then yeah, sit him out. But I mean, if it's a bad bruise, then okay. But anyways, I'm not taking anything away from Matthew
Oh
Kachuk.
no, he's
He
nails.
played with a broken
Yeah.
he played with a broken sternum, so
That kid's nails.
anybody that can do that has all the respect in the world from this side of the microphone. That's
Yeah.
for damn sure.
Oh, 100%. Even if he has a bruise and he wants to sit out, he's got a Stanley Cup to worry about. That
Yeah,
team's still got a legitimate
Yeah,
shot
I
at
get
winning a
it,
cup.
man.
As
Like
much as I think this
I
tournament
know.
matters to him, Stanley Cup looks a lot better on the resume than a gold medal and a forward. Actually, you know what? That's not.
No,
Maybe not.
I don't know
maybe
about
not.
that.
Yeah,
I
because
don't
there's
know
not a
about
lot of
that.
these international
You don't know what
tournaments.
motivates these guys, so
Yeah, this is tough one. This is playing for your country is a whole different animal.
Especially when they haven't done it in over a decade, basically.
Yeah.
Last one was 2016. It's pretty much a decade. Like 9 years ago is a long time. A lot of these guys weren't even in that tournament. And some guys
Yeah.
that were in the tournament, i.e. Connor McDavid, wasn't even playing for Canada. He's playing for Team Young Guns.
Yeah, that's right. That's
This
right.
is
He
his
was.
first
Our
time
team.
donning the Canada sweater.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, he's 20.
Yeah,
he's
you're
28
right.
years old, and this is the first time he's donned the Canadian sweater. Same with Austin Matthews. First time he's donned the U.S. sweater. Because he was on Team Young Guns as well, too.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I hadn't thought about
The
that.
unfortunate one is Johnny Gaudreau was also on that Team Young Guns team, so he never
Yeah.
got to play in the U.S. uniform, which stinks. But that's to go to show that the international hockey needs to be stay. It doesn't need to be every year. I get it. You need to have the rarity of it a little bit to create these matchups, because if it was every year, it would turn into the All-Star game, where it's a trophy that really doesn't mean much. Yeah, it's bragging rights, but guys don't want to get hurt going. It needs to be every 4 years or something. Have it offset with the Olympics. Do it like the soccer does with the Euros and the Olympics, to where you do it every 4 years, but it's on. So every 2 years there's an international tournament. So every 2 years there's the Euros, and then every 4 years there's the Euros. But it's in real time. It's like Euros, 2 years later World Cup, 2 years later Euros, 2 years later World Cup. Do that with the Olympics. And then in those intermediate times, those other games, throw in an All-Star game, but you have to change the format of it, because now you realize there are millions of people watching these games. There are maybe 100,000 people watching the All-Star game. There's got to be a different format for it, because there's people want to watch hockey, but they need to watch good hockey. It can't be BS hockey. People don't want to watch that.
Yeah, they don't want to watch the, sort of the All-Star game type. It just doesn't go. That's last. If we would have had a tournament like that, the viewership would be it would be terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, so there's no energy to it. There's no physicality. There's no nothing. And I think this is the perfect way to do it. So let me ask you guys a question. Has anybody in this tournament surprised you as either good or bad?
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
I think I know exactly who's
You know exactly who I'm going to talk about, man. What a fraud that guy is.
I knew it.
So anyway, so
Fox.
let's dive into that.
Adam
Cam, I'll let you
Fox,
go
man.
first, because I already know who it is.
Yep, it's Adam Fox. For any of you jokers that think that Adam Fox is a top 6 defenseman, dude, you could literally plug and play any USD man in the NHL right now, and they'd probably play just as well, if not a little bit better than Adam Fox is playing. He's been a ghost. And I know you could say, oh, they're cutting down his ice time. It's like, well, yeah, because
There's
he
a
stinks.
reason.
Like, he's not good.
Yeah.
And And I think he's when he won the trophy as well, or I don't know how many times he's won it. I think he's won it twice,
Once.
but he's only won once. Okay, good.
Yes.
But again, it's he gets points on the power play, which is fine. Points are points. Like, I'm not going to take away the points from him for sure. But again, it's like you look earlier in the year, when their power play's not clicking, they lose games because they rely so heavily on it. And they as in the Rangers, but I think, and I'm not trying to create a lot of Rangers slander here because I think JT Miller's been phenomenal.
I think
he's been
very
amazing.
good for US. I think that
He's
was a
been
great ad by them.
so good, man. He's been so good. I'm kind of a little upset that the Canes didn't get him, but I obviously I love Rantanen, but yeah, Adam
The
Fox.
only thing I worry about is that
I don't
locker room
understand.
deep enough to hold up a JT Miller?
Yeah, I
They've
don't know.
had locker room issues in the past, and I just don't know because they've lost
Yeah.
their entire leadership structure this past year. I mean, all their Trouba's gone. Goudreau, who wore an A for them at a period of time, is gone. Panarin's their highest ranking leader right now, and is he really a guy that can handle a JT Miller? Like that's the only thing that worries me with that ordeal with them is like JT Miller's a lot to handle.
The only reason is I think he has checks and balances with Trocheck there too. I think him and Trocheck are really close.
That's
so
very true. That is a
Trocheck will be
very
the
true
guy
point.
that'll check him if
Yeah.
he's kind of stepping out of line.
They're like
and
best
I think
buddies,
Miller
so.
will listen as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
I think that I think the Rangers guys have played well. I think Trocheck's played well when they needed him to play well. Obviously he's getting limited ice time.
Face up mutant though.
For sure. So it's but it's interesting for sure. I think I'm trying to, because I don't want to rag on Fox too much again. Yes, he's bad, but again, it is what it is. Like, it's fine. I mean, I think they had him on the first unit power play, and they yanked him off that pretty quick. So now it's Werenski, who I think Werenski hasn't had a great showing.
I don't think he has either.
He got dog walked yesterday, and then McDavid basically torched McAvoy as well because McAvoy was caught because Werenski got burned. And Werenski's pulling an Orlov, kind of just looking and staring and hoping that McDavid doesn't score. So, yeah, it's interesting, though. I mean, these tournaments kind of show you who really is the best of the best, because a lot of teams will be like, oh, we got the best guy over here. He's the best. Werenski's one of the best defensemen in the NHL. It's like, well, are you sure? There's a lot of Canadian guys that I see on the defensive side that are better than him. So
one guy I wanted to shout out actually on Team Canada, Thomas Harley. That was one guy that honestly surprised me for coming in off of
the situation he was in.
Coming in off of a beach trip, basically you're in vacation mode, and all of a sudden you have to ramp up for probably the single biggest game of your life.
Yeah.
And it's within a 24-hour window where you're literally coming off of the beach, going to a morning skate where you're not even allowed on the ice because Makar was on the ice. He had to come off halfway so Harley could get some reps in because he could only have so many guys on the ice. But I thought he played really well last night. I thought he looked really good. Another guy, just because he's coming off injury too, just to give their props to the Canada, because I thought they played a good game. I thought it was an unbelievable game by both teams. I don't think either team was like the dominant team. I thought it was a great game overall. But Drew Doughty, because he came off of an injury.
Well
he's
too.
37 years old. He's only played 6 games this season, and he hasn't missed a beat.
Yeah,
he looks really good.
He looked really good.
So good.
The guy that also that has been a little surprising to me that he's been a little bit unnoticeable. Maybe it's the wrong word, but I think Sasha Barkov. I think Barkov's had
He
okay
struggled
tournament.
a little bit, yeah.
I think he's had an okay tournament. And I don't know if that's just the matchups he's getting or what, but he's typically that defensive shutdown juggernaut, Selke, the Selke award-winning player all the time, and he's just not looked like that. And maybe like I said, maybe it's the matchups, maybe it's his line set, maybe he's getting used to playing with Rantanen. I don't know what it is, but he's the one that surprised me.
Bring up one point just because in the first period of the last game and in the first game that I saw Finland against US, I noticed this. I agree. He has not been playing his best hockey for sure. Though I think one big issue that he's having, though, is he's so used to having a D-core in Florida to where if he's in trouble, he can dish it over to one of those guys and they can zip a puck out very quickly and get it up ice and going in a turn. I don't think he has that in Finland because there were 2 times yesterday where he tried. It was yesterday in the first period. One, he dished it right to the center guy, the defenseman. I think it was Yoki Harju. He gets the puck, fumbles it a little bit, And then all of a sudden Sweden's back in the zone, but it looks like it's a turnover by Barkov. But that on a Florida game, if he has, and if he has not Ekblad right there,
Ekblad. Yeah.
he gets that over to Ekblad. Ekblad's getting that puck out of the zone. There's no issues. And all of a sudden Barkov makes an unbelievable defensive play. I think a lot of it does have to come back to the fact, and I don't want to keep harping on Finland's defense. If they had all their normal guys in their decor, I think you're seeing a different level of Barkov's defensive game. I do agree his offensive game has been very lackluster, and I think that that's hurt Finland significantly. I also think that the line combination they have together just doesn't work for Barkov. He's used to having two faster, speedier wingers. Now, I know he does play with Matthew Kachuk from time to time, but Matthew Kachuk is a gritty, grind, go get the puck, and then set up Barkov kind of player, where Rantanen's not really that guy. They're both a little bit slower. They're not the fastest guys in the world. And I know who's on the other side. It's the guy from
Lehkonen.
Yeah,
It's from
Arturi
Colorado.
Lehkonen from Colorado. He's got some speed, and he's kind of a bull. But I think there's too much big body. And I know it sounds weird because we were just talking about USA being huge, but Finland needs to kind of sparse that out a little bit throughout their lineup because they just don't have a ton of it. Even maybe, I don't know how deep Finland's center system is. Throw Aho up there and toss Rantanen back down, or you got to flip it up somewhere to where I don't think Barkov and Rantanen together is the best combination for Finland, just because I think they need to spread the wealth a little bit more, especially if they want to have a chance against Canada, because you're going to have to score against Canada's third line, their fourth line, because the first two lines aren't going to let you out of the zone. So you're going to really have to sparse that offense deep into your lineup, because you're going to want Barkov out there against McDavid as much as you possibly can. So if he's going to be stuck in his own zone the whole time, I want to give him two wingers that aren't the best offensive weapons, and then put Aho and Rantanen together and try and get them against a third pairing or a third line. That's how you're going to beat Canada. But it's just, I think that's being a big issue with Barkov's game right now, is just he's with somebody that's too similar to his game, that he can't really play his big body game down low because he's already got somebody down. Mikko's in the corner already. He's got to kind of be that high guy that floats up, and that's just not Barkov hockey.
Yeah. I know. And the other guy in that team too that I really love watching to play, and I love to watch him play during the season when he's not playing us, obviously. But is Anton Lundell. I think he's just such a really good player. He's so aggressive. He's so he's on the puck. He's a dog in a bone, like I'll coin your phrase from earlier, Kyle. He's always in the plays, always in the mix. He always creates turn. I think he scored yesterday, actually, or either yesterday or the first game. I can't remember which one it was, but I love he's not surprised me, but I'm glad to see that he's performing the way he is, in a best on best tournament, because he's earned his stripes to be there, because he's played exceptionally well for Florida.
The one final guy I want to make note of, he's also another Florida defenseman. Didn't really, and this is kind of one of those other surprises to me. Nico Mikkola for having to take on he's the number one left defenseman right now. I think he's looked really, really good. I think that there's better left defensemen from Finland. If they have their full roster in, he's probably the second, maybe third pairing defenseman. But for having to take on a bigger role, I think he's stepped into it, and he's looked really good. I didn't realize how freaking tall he was. I know I've seen him play in Florida, but I don't know why. In the Finland whites, he looks like he is massive.
Yeah.
He's a big dude.
Yeah. How about yesterday? How about the overtime? I was like standing there in the living room, and I was watching it, and they come down, and I think it was Andre Kempe came down for Sweden, drove hard to the net. I don't know how he didn't score. And then it kind of just trickled out and squirted out between the pads, and Mikkola, he works the puck up the wing, and I was standing there. As soon as they broke the puck out, I told your mom, I said Finland's going to score.
Finland goal.
And it's Finland goal.
Granlund,
But it was a good play, or a lucky play maybe at one end. I'll call it lucky, but turns into transition the other way, and that's the shit that happens. And so anyways, so we'll see what happens on Monday. It should be a really good Monday. I was hoping we weren't going to get into the point where today we're talking about, well, Canada's locked in, US is locked in.
Yeah.
We're all locked in for Thursday. And I think the NHL is really excited about that too, because Monday means something now to all three teams. So So there's nothing. The only team that, well, I shouldn't say it doesn't mean anything to the U.S., but there's no outcome that is sort of, well, let's say this. Who would you rather play in the final? I guess I'll leave. Well, maybe I'll leave it at the Four Nations talk on that one. Who would you rather play in the final? Um, to Would you rather play one of the three, or does it really matter
Give
to
me
you?
Canada again. I want
I'd rather
Canada,
have Canada
TD
again.
Garden.
I think the NHL wants
I
Canada
want to
again.
hear
for
the
sure.
Canadian anthem at TD. It's going to rain. You think it was bad Montreal? Watch now. You picked the wrong. If they were playing in LA, yeah, you could do it. You could probably get away with it. Nah, you're playing in Boston. It's gonna be ugly. I'm just letting everybody know it's gonna get
Yeah.
ugly.
I just
Yeah.
I just don't see a world where Canada doesn't make it. I mean, obviously there's a possibility that they don't, but you know, I just don't. Do I see McDavid and McKinnon and like Crosby letting that team down kind of thing? I just don't. I don't know.
Especially against the Finnish decor.
That's what I
I
mean.
think
Like
that's
they're
gonna be
just
the
gonna
hardest part.
they're gonna have another level of compete when they play Finland too. But I mean, I don't know, man, because the U.S. is. I think the U.S. is lucky with what they've been able to culminate as far as young talent. I think the U.S. has a lot of really young guys that are really good. And again, shout out to, Bill Guerin and John Hines as well, because the best young guys in this tournament really are the guys from Minnesota. You look at Matt Boldy, who's played unbelievable.
Yeah,
Like he's been a guy.
that was another guy. That's a good call.
I don't want to play against Eric Sinek. I love that guy
I was
to
gonna
death.
say
and he's been
he was my
an
favorite
animal.
player to watch.
An animal. Him, Faber, Erickson, like Gustafson played well as well in the first game. I know he was sick and he got kind of yanked for Allmark yesterday. I don't know if he was actually sick or they were just saying that, but he played really well in the first game against Canada. He kept him in that game, but yeah, man, I don't know if I want to play Sweden. I think I'd rather play Canada because Sweden's going to be the lock it down defensive powerhouse that could cause the U.S. to struggle to actually get pucks on net. That's what you don't want to play against. Canada is going to be wide open. It's going to be a track meet, kind of like it was last night. But it was also pretty tight checking as well last night too. So
Yeah.
I mean, I
I think that's the
definitely
thing
would
with-
rather be Canada though, for sure.
Yeah, that's the thing with Finland too. I think that in my mind is the only way that Finland has a chance against Canada.
They have to.
They have to lock it down.
They
have
do.
to control the middle of the ice. They have to they almost have to stop and not worry about taking opportunities in the O zone. They just have to keep the puck out of their zone
As
and make
much
it
as they
and
can.
drag it out. They
Mhm.
just need to drag it out. It's almost like playing an old school Paul Maurice kind of game where you just you don't let anything happen. you shut it down, and then all of a sudden you look for that one opportunity, and boom, it's in the net.
Yeah.
So that's the only way they're gonna. But if they're gonna trade chances with Canada, they're gonna lose it every day and 10 times on Sunday.
Yep.
So
If Finland is able to beat Canada, it's probably the biggest win in Finland's men's top level hockey history, at least in recent memory that I can think of. Granted, my recent memory doesn't go all the way back to date time, but I think at least from what I can remember, it probably would be the biggest win in their recent history, because not only would it put them into the finals to play the U.S. with a chance to win the whole damn thing, but I don't think anybody's expecting Finland to win. I don't think there's a soul on this
we
planet.
expected them to finish last.
I said from the beginning, I thought they were going to be a hard out. I said that they're dogs on a bone. They're going to be I think the toughest team to genuinely get out. That's why I'm happy we played them to start and not to finish, because I think that's one of those teams that just gets better and better throughout a tournament, because they know how to play as a unit. They've done it all the time. The other thing too, and I think Ray last night on the color?
Yep.
Yeah,
In the
so
glass, yeah.
Ray brought it up. The massive advantage U.S. has over U.S., Finland, and kind of Sweden is these international teams. Like the U.S. has the national development program. Sweden, a lot of their international play, they play a lot of international games. Like those guys will play 20 games a season. Same with Finland. Canada doesn't do that. Half the time in those tournaments, they're split up between like 3 different teams because they have so many kids that are good. But you look at what it's doing now. half the guys on the US have played a year or two together already. They kind of have each
Right.
other's tendencies already down. And there are guys that didn't overlap in years. It's a longer stretch, but you at least have one or two guys like Werwinski and Larkin. They played on the same team.
They were roommates,
They
I
were
think, at
roommates at
Michigan.
Yeah,
Michigan.
exactly. So it's
Yeah.
just like you have some level of familiarity with half of these guys. And I think that just goes to whoever decided that that was their avenue to go to build this national development program. Hats off, bravo. You've done an exceptional job for USA Hockey. Not everybody goes through the system. Kyle Connor's a great example. He's probably the only one that doesn't have any level of kind of background with some of these guys. And that's because
Yeah.
he didn't go to the national development program. He ended up he got drafted by Youngstown. That's a whole different story. I thought my name's Kyle Conover. His name's Kyle Connor. I thought I got drafted. I saw a little tweet. I was like, holy shit. But anyways, um, it's just, it shows on the game that there's just a little bit more familiarity and there's some sort of continuity between the team even before they arrived. There's some
Yeah.
sort of connection that some of these guys have, and it shows in one of these really tight-knit tournaments where you don't have time to really get to know everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's going to be, it's important, especially in a short window
Yep.
where you have to have that kind of stuff. You have to buy in quickly. I mean, you guys know, tournaments are tournaments. I mean, they happen quickly. You're in, you're out, and and these guys they don't have the advantage of like youth teams that come in. They've been playing together all
Yeah.
year, and so they don't have that. So, anyways, we'll see what happens on Monday. But should be a good Monday in Four Nations. So if we'll let's close here, guys. If you want to, um,
3 stars of the
let's
tournament so
3
far.
stars of the
Yeah.
tournament so far in your opinion. So who wants to start? I think, well, Cam, we went with you first last week. I guess I haven't gone first in a while, so
There you
I
go.
guess I'll kick it off and give you guys a second to think about it. I think, um, well, first star for me, I'll go the other way. I'll go first to third, but first star for me is you know I'm going to give it to Slavin just because he's been as far as I'm concerned, he's been the player of the match for both games. He has been, I mean, steady Eddie. He's not created any, he's created opportunities. His stick play is phenomenal, and what he did against Connor McDavid and um and Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby, he was absolutely lights out. So he'll be the first star for me. Second star, I think I'm going to give I think I'm going to give it to Sydney. I'm going to give it to Crosby because in the first game against when they played Sweden, he was by far the best player on the ice. And again, he didn't look as good against the US because of the decor he was going up against, but he was still creating opportunities. He was still creating chances for Canada. Um, so I think he'll be my second star. And then I know he hasn't had any points in the tournament at this point. I don't think he's had, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know if he's had any assists, but he hadn't had any goals. But I thought Austin Matthews has been electric. He's been
Yeah.
so good in every facet of the game. So I know it's kind of maybe a low hanging fruit there, but I think Austin Matthews is my third star.
Cam, you can go after.
Yeah, I think it's for me. I mean, and I know and I'm not trying to. It's tough too because we're talking about 4 teams here that are competing in the same tournament. We're not talking about one team now, so it's a little tough. You're going to leave some guys off the list that deserve to be on there for sure.
Yep.
I mean, for me, I'm gonna go. I want to put Boldy on this list, but I don't think I can just because of the guys in front of him. So for number 3, I'm probably gonna go Jake Gensel just because he's scored. It's mattered the most, man. Like he's had the goals when they
He's
matter
leading
the
the
most.
tournament in points.
That's what I mean. Like you can't. For me, I can't keep him off the list, even though it's I don't know. It's just he's gone 5-hole both times he scored. And obviously the empty net, but yeah, I think he's been really good. I mean, he's been the guy scoring. We haven't seen a goal from Austin Matthews. We haven't seen a goal from Kyle Connor. We haven't seen a goal from a lot of these guys. So, he's been the guy that's stepped up and put the points on the board. So you need guys to do that for sure. I think for me, second place is Matthew Kachuk. I think he's just been so impactful. You could throw Brady in there if you want to, but I just think Matthew is just he's so good, man. He's so good. And you realize, even watching him in this versus, the cup final last year, you just realize how good he's always good. Like, he's always in the right spot. He's never really making mistakes. He plays with guys really well. He can fight, he can skate, he can pass, he can shoot, like, he can do everything. So he's number 2 for me. Number 1, it has to be Slavin. Like, I don't think there's been a better player in the tournament, like, overall. Like, obviously the points aren't there, but, you name me a guy that's played better. Without Jacob Slavin last night, the U.S. probably loses that game. Like, just flat out. The U.S. probably lose that game without Slavin. So, again, if you could afford to miss any of the guys on that team, you would put everybody in front of missing Jacob Slavin. Everybody. Everyone. You could miss Hellebuck, you could miss Faber, you could miss Gensel, you could miss Kachuk, any one of them. Like, if Slavin's not in that lineup, that's a tough game. I don't think it's as tight. I think that Canada gets 2 or 3. So, yeah, he has to be number 1 for me. So.
All 3 USA guys. I like it.
I know. Yeah, like I said, they're the only team that's, undefeated at this point. They've shown that they can go toe-to-toe with anybody right now. So we'll see how they match up against Sweden. But, yeah, those 3 guys have been the reason why the U.S. has been winning games, is, I think, a lot to do with those 3.
Yeah, I'm going to do 2 and 1 first because they're kind of a mix-up of answers. My number 2 spot is Jake Gensel. Hey, when you need points, you got to produce them. And I know we always say that points are not the most important thing in the game, but at the end of the day, you got to get some goals on the board in order to win hockey games. And he's done it. He's produced. He's leading the tournament in points. So Jake the Snake, number 2. Jacob Slavin, number 1. I 100% wholeheartedly agree with you, Cam. I think even the Finland game becomes a little bit more of a struggle if Jacob Slavin's not playing the way that he is. I think Finland probably has a couple more opportunities. Slavin was playing against not as much as he did in the Canada game. I think it took Sullivan and Hines a second to realize, oh my God, we have the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. He needs to play against the top units, because in the third period against Finland, he was playing against those guys, shutting them down. I think he had 3 transitions up the ice where all of a sudden they turned into goals. Just exceptional play. And then Canada, Cam, that game I think is probably 4-3, 5-3 Canada. If Jacob Slavin's not on, he just shut everything down.
Yep.
Canada couldn't get into the third period. They couldn't get into the zone because Jacob Slavin, the only times they got into the zone and sustained offense was when Slavin was taking a rest. And that's why he played so many minutes, because they couldn't afford to have him take a rest. It's as simple as that. And hats off to Brock Faber as well, too. He's, in my opinion, right up there with Jacob Slavin, because in all honesty, it's so fun to watch Jacob Slavin play hockey with somebody that's, actually, I love Brent Burns, but like good, really good at hockey, like really exceptionally good. Like Brent Burns 10 years ago level good. Like, it's just not the same defenseman that he once was. And he's 40 years old. Nobody's blaming him for it. It happens to everybody. But to see him with some young legs like Brock Faber, whew, my God. We talked to Brett Cam the other day, and we were talking about getting him on for this episode. I completely forgot to text him again, but we were talking to him the other day, and I was like, he was like, I'm scared that we wasted Jacob Slavin's best years with, with Dougie Hamilton, Tony D'Angelo, and Brent Burns. And I'm like, yeah, but I still think he's got that in him. And we're seeing it right now. He's got every ounce of it in him. He gets somebody youthful next to him, and it could change the entire direction of Jacob Slavin's path. But I think the best thing about it, he's actually going to get the national notoriety. I would not be surprised if he's in Norris conversations this year. Genuinely, would not be surprised.
I would be surprised. I would genuinely, because it's a point race.
But I think
that's all the Norris has been.
I think you're seeing a shift in the NHL, because you saw a lot of press people coming out saying, I didn't realize how unbelievably good Jacob Slavin was. There's a lot of people that have those votes that are sitting there going, I never realized how good Jacob Slavin was. You don't realize it until you have. 20 million. I don't know how many viewers there were. I'm suspecting probably in the tens of millions. You got 10 million. Everybody in the hockey world is watching you. And he
Yeah.
goes out there and shoves it up the hoop of Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Nathan McKinnon. Everybody. I think he's going to, I would not be surprised if, I'm not saying he's going to be maybe the top 3, but he got 2 votes last year. I would not be surprised if he gets a hell of a lot more than 2 votes this year. That's all I'm saying. He might be in the conversation. But my third star is going to be, this is only because you already took Crosby, Dad. I'm going to give Lucas Raymond the shout. He's got 3 points in this tournament as well, too. For a young guy, I think he's looked really good. I think he's been a good asset for the Swedes. They have yet to win a game, but he's been producing offensively. I don't think he's been a complete disaster in his own zone. I think he's been quite responsible for what I've seen out of him in Detroit as well, too. Sometimes he's a little bit lackluster there. So I've seen a good complete 200-foot game out of him. I think he deserves the nod. Crosby was going to be my one if you had picked somebody different. But I wanted to give the nod to somebody else because we're very U.S. heavy U.S. heavy list right now. So I was just trying to spread the wealth a little bit. The other guy I was thinking about was honestly Nico Mikkola, because I think Finland would be in hell or high waters without him playing the way and Esa Lindell, those 2 guys. So
yeah, I know that they're I forgot about Esa Lindell.
That's another guy that I think Finland's out of the tournament already without those 2 guys.
Yeah,
so I mean, they easily could be on the
them.
list as well too.
Yeah.
There's just so many guys that have played really well.
Yeah, you're right. And I think Cam, you said it earlier. It's how do you leave somebody
So
off this
hard.
list? Sometimes it's
I know,
really it's almost impossible.
It's an impossible task. So
yeah,
you're gonna leave
but
quality
hey,
guys
that's what we do. We just make it up as we go and hope for the best and hopefully we're right. So anyway, so that'll do it unless you guys have anything else you wanna jump on. But if not, we'll
I got one other question. So
all right.
typically in like your NHL MVP season, like for the awards at the end of the year, it's only based off of the NHL season. And if there is an international tournament like the Olympics, it's not typically based off of that because that's not under the NHL's horoscope or under the NHL's umbrella, I should say. Because this tournament is an NHL tournament, do you think they take into consideration this tournament as part of the voting at the end of the season because it has a connection, or do you think it's completely separate? They're not going to do anything with it.
No, they're not going to do anything with it.
I think it's treated as separately, but at the same time, you can't argue with the visibility point that the people making the votes or casting the votes see what's happening.
Yes.
And I think you can't argue that doesn't or couldn't play a part in somebody
People might be a little bit more amped to watch a Carolina Jacob Slavin play shutdown defense.
Right. So I think they're indirectly it could have an impact. But I think directly, no. I think it doesn't make any difference. The outcome of this tournament doesn't make any difference on the outcome of the results directly.
Yeah.
But it could indirectly, I think, is where I was going with it. So.
Yep. All right, that was my final question. Also, saw some BS news that Russia and I sort of BS for the sole purpose of the hockey. I want to see these players in international play as well too. Russia is not going to be allowed in the Olympics next year, so they will be out of the tournament again. Again, I get the whole reasoning and everything behind it. Sure. Just let the players have nothing to do with it. They're all living in the U.S. playing in the NHL anyways. Just let them play, man. Like why we're going to keep Ovechkin out of the next Olympics? It's going to be his last run kick at the can with Russia. We're going to keep all these guys off of it because why are we bringing politics into hockey? Just
well, I know it's been there for centuries, so it's not going to change.
But I get the BS.
I don't disagree with you.
I just want to see the players. I want to see. Could you imagine? You want to talk about USA's goaltending core? Look at Russia's. My God.
Yeah.
They got like 5 of the last 6 Vezina winners outside of Hellebuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll we hopefully things happen where that changes.
Yes, hopefully.
Maybe there's things in the works that, this won't happen.
Could sway the audience to allow Russia.
Could sway everybody the other way. So but anyway, so we'll leave you there, and we really, like I said, we really do every week appreciate everybody that's listening. So if you haven't subscribed, please do, and follow us on all the other social media platforms. We do appreciate it, and and it does help us gain traction and give momentum to do more content. So until next week, we'll bid you adieu as I'll coin my partner's my phrase this week, and we'll talk to you next week.